читать книгу на английском. Не помню кто, но у меня просили продолжение этого видео. Вот я и делаю его вам. Да, напомню, что это вот эта вот книга. Да. Салли Хейвуд Simply Forever. Вот это. У меня уже была первая часть. Да. Так что теперь будет вторая. Так, ну что ж, я продолжаю читать. His voice unexpectedly thickened and he ran ahead rapidly, so his spiky brown hair. Well, I don't mean to come on a heavy, especially at a time like this, but I can't have you chatting back to him without a word about how I feel about you. You know, I like to sort of hang loose. He lets his world tail off, gave her a lopsided smile and went on hastily. You may have felt you're just one of the many at the moment, but I can't have escaped your notice that I think you are something pretty special, Flame. He moved closer, cupping her chin in his hand to tilt her face to his. This time she didn't flinch away, but her eyes warned him the barricade was still up. You must have guessed by now how I feel, he told her. And I think you must have guessed I'd have moved in on you long ago if I hadn't thought you'd slap me down pretty smartly if I did. I guess I'm hoping by the time your divorce comes, so in 6 months' time you'll be as hooked on me as I already am on you. Johnny Flame returned his smile as lightly as she could, breaking an intimacy of physical contact. I'm fond of you, and I really admire the way you have built this agency up. It's been great working for you, but you know, after what I went through with Marlowe, she faltered over the name, even now getting into a sort of relationship again in something I'm quite shy of. I am not pursuing, sweetie, but if things get so out there, you know who you can run to. Johnny ran a hand through his hair again, obviously embarrassed at losing his cool. Love him and leave him. Pause for a moment. He was back in familiar mode again. As I said, what are you standing about for? Go for it. He swung back into his office as his own phone started to ring. It was beginning of another hectic day, but in between work, Flame managed to fix a flight through Johnny's friend Tim, and at Johnny's insistence rang Samantha again to let her know she would be arriving at 5:15 in the morning. This time she forced herself to be sensible. I'll take a taxi from Malacha, she said. I don't need anybody to pick me up from the airport. She didn't have to elaborate on the anybody. You'll have to face him some time, Flame, warned Samantha. He's still part of the family. Only for another 6 months. Legally, yes, but in other ways for much longer than that. Samantha sounded thoughtful. What I want to say, love, it is still living at the villa, and for the mother's sake, you are going to have to be civil to each other. You know how she feels about you, boss. I'll be civil, don't worry. Nothing that Ren can every day say or do will ever make me lose control again. Flame spoke fiercely, convinced that nothing that one can ever or do will ever make me lose control again. Flame spoke fiercely, convinced that at last she was over him. I'll be the perfect lady, just don't let him to be the one to the meet at the airport. Just don't let me him one to the meet. I can face him, but not at 5 in the morning. Have a heart. Emilia has already offered to pick up, actually. Still together, Flame fell back on the standard joke. Samantha chuckled despite the strain she was under. We have behaved stupidly in the past, but likely we both admit it. I always say crazy fools should stick together, Flame quipped, as she replaced the receipt and began to throw a few clothes into a bag. She felt a twinge of remorse and the obvious heaviness in Samantha's voice. She and Marlo had blown their own chance of marital happiness 18 months ago, and the chance of Marlo admitting the blame was zero. Lucky Samantha, things has turned out differently for you and your Spanish husband. They had a yo-yo relationship in first, your sister exuberant nature clashing openly and often with the volatile Latin temperament of your husband, and during the period before Flame's own marriage, Samantha and Emilia were actually trying to live apart. But their problems had all blown over by the time Flame and Marlo had come to work down to asylum. Return with your obviously daring husband. Samantha had looked almost as radiant as a bride. Deep down, Flame knew the marriage was a good one, but one thing she couldn't forget, and that was how worried your mother and he has been throughout out those years, as if she felt she break up was a stigma on the whole. Flame had later come to see this attitude as one of the reasons her mother was so keen for her to marry, as if success in that direction for her younger daughter could conceal what she seemed to see as a failure of the elder one. But this wasn't entirely fair to say. Her mother had pushed her into marriage, for on top of that, of course, was the question of the land. And on top of all that, if this wasn't enough, was the question of what now seemed to Flame her own senseless infatuation with Marlo Hanson himself. She had needed to encourage to plunge headlong into marriage with him. She thought ruefully she had been only too eager. She went around the flat checking that everything that should be switched off before she left was off. Bitter thoughts were running through her mind, and later as the taxi sped towards the inevitable meeting with Marlo, she felt helpless to stop with flood of memories searching back. Until now, she had ruthlessly repressed them, but with a meeting imminent, she couldn't hold them back any longer. She remembered how she had left Spain, vowing never to return as long as Marlo Hudson remained uncrowned king of Santa Margarita. Now she was being forced to go back on that vow. The whole issue of their marriage had been a recipe for this disaster from the very beginning. Take one inexperienced 19-year-old, she thought, really, and one power-hungry male at in the rather large and undeveloped piece of real estate waiting for something to exploit it, and finally stare in one very impractical lady owner looking for a man to shoulder the burden. she remembered the first time she had an inkling anything with a food. All this will be yours one day, darlings, your mother had told her and Samantha as they picnicked on the cliff top with the sweet-smelling pines sighing softly behind them and the broad, bright blue sweep of the sea caressing and tumbling cliffs. The trouble is I can't bear to the thought of handing down nothing but a scrubby bit of undeveloped coastline to you both. You dear father had such wonderful plans for it, gardens of pleasure and delight, not rocks and wildness. Это было все на сегодня. Продолжение будет в следующем видео с этой книгой. Кому нравятся такие видео, где я читаю книгу, пишите, пожалуйста, хотите ли вы продолжение. Если да, то я обязательно сниму еще, так как я не знаю, продолжать ли эту рубрику или нет. Да. А я желаю тебе сладких снов и всего самого хорошего.